Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today. I'm Katie from Wunder Mobility, and today we're going to be talking about the rise of e-bikes in shared mobility. Just a quick note for everybody watching, you can leave your questions in the chat. We'll try to get to them, but if not, we'll get back to anyone after the session today. So yeah, feel free to leave any comments or questions there. So for anyone who doesn't know, I'm from Wunder Mobility. Wunder Mobility is the one-stop shop solution for launching and scaling your shared mobility business. And not only do we have the software solution, we also have Wunder Vehicles, which is the area that we're going to be talking about today. And in particular, we're talking about the rise of e-bikes and what this means for the shared mobility industry. So I'm joined today by Stefano, who's part of our Wunder Vehicles team. And we're very excited to hear some of your insights on the rise of e-bikes. Could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role at Wunder Mobility?
Yes. Hello, everybody. I am Stefano Niero. I am the technical product manager in the vehicles team at Wunder Mobility. I take care of the development of micromobility vehicles, and I do that by paying particular attention to both the market, but also the user needs in order to ensure that such vehicles are actually sharing ready and easy to use.
Perfect. And today we're going to be talking about e-bikes in particular, one of the many vehicles that can be used for sharing. So there's been a huge boom in the use or in the purchase and the use of e-bikes recently. How do you see this change, how this change developed?
Yeah, so it's true. There's been a very quick and rather radical change recently, but this is a process that originates quite back in time. I mean, cities are pushing cars out, and that's a process that has been going on for quite a long time now. The recent pandemic speeded up that process even further. Of course, that is the bigger is the city, the faster is this process. But even though it's particularly true for bigger cities, that is becoming more and more true also for smaller urban areas. And in this context, mobility has evolved very rapidly and very much. Until 10 years ago, the main vision for future mobility was a switch from the privately owned passenger car to the autonomous car, possibly more or less integrated with public transportation. Of course, that was a very fascinating view. Of course, this can still be partially true. Nobody really knows what will happen for sure in the future, but recently shared mobility popped up, and that shuffled the deck completely. In particular, shared micromobility became a very much prominent protagonist in our city's environment. And within the shared micromobility, the e-bikes are the brand new actor. E-bikes are a very familiar object, and they enjoy very wide acceptance both by municipality and the public, thanks to the affinity to a very well-known use case that has been present in cities for forever. That is the bicycle, indeed. The bicycle, most of the people around the world know more or less how to ride a bicycle. Compared to any other mean of transportation, it is very likely that a person, also independently of its age, had some previous experience with bicycles. And that means that they are very likely to know how to ride it. And that makes the bicycle by far the mean of transportation with the lowest access barriers. On top of that, if you add a motor on a small e-motor on the bicycle, you also relieve a little bit of effort, making the bicycle even more comfortable, and that widens even further the user pool of such mean of transportation.
Mm-hmm. And so it's, from what you're saying, it's not only the private use that is increasing, but also we're seeing more and more shared mobility operators, including e-bikes into their fleet, or even having a fleet just made up of e-bikes. So what is it exactly that makes the e-bike then suitable for the sharing industry?
Well, yeah, so let me first start from the fact that I would say that shared bicycles are still in the making. I mean, besides high level requirements of having a cheap and robust object, the market is still not 100% aligned on the user needs and wants, as these are still to be understood in depth, being the sharing market a rather young business. So in order to maybe better understand what makes an e-bike suitable for sharing, let's start from the, pass me the term, normal bikes or traditional bikes. If we consider traditional bikes, they are a rather complex and fragile object. I mean, it doesn't look like, but they require a reasonable amount of care and attention. And whilst that amount of care and attention is reasonable for a private user, it's definitely too much for a sharing service. Sharing service asks for minimum maintenance and high robustness of components due to highly intensive use and also, unfortunately, misuse as well. That must be taken into consideration. In order to fulfill those requirements, you end up with having a rather heavy and quite mechanically inefficient vehicle. So this is where when e-bikes come into place. So by adding an e-motor to that rather mechanically inefficient vehicle, you manage to relieve from the excessive effort from the end user, and you make a user able to still move nimbly around town with the fun of actually riding a bike. Maybe doing a little movement, which is most of the time very much appreciated, but also without an excessive effort. So without sweating too much, that can also be quite an issue with daily commuting if you want to move quick around town with a bike.
So it sounds then like sharing ready bicycles are still, or e-bikes are still quite a new concept, and I can imagine then the choice of the e-bike for the operator can have really quite an impact on their operations and therefore likely also their profitability. Could you talk about some of the factors that can impact operations when it comes to choosing an e-bike?
Yes. So because of this market not being 100% aligned, there are different options out there, and different paths have been chosen by each manufacturer, and there are different factors that you need to consider for your operations, also depending on where and when you want to deliver. But so let's start from the one that might be the most important one, that is money. Talking about money, you have the purchase price. That is not the only thing that you need to consider in order to choose a bike. Actually, what you need to consider is the TCO, that is the total cost of ownership, which in this case it can actually stand for total cost of operations. And if this is not properly taken into consideration, the purchase price will play an actually a minor role in your costs. So to have a low TCO, you also need to have low maintenance. To have low maintenance, it means to minimize operations and change rate of spare parts and components. So that means that crucial components on the bike must guarantee reliability. Some crucial components are, for example, the tires. You have the option of having a full rubber tire versus an air inflated tire. By choosing a full rubber tire, you basically remove something that can fail, and that can fail actually most often on the bike, that is the air inflated tire. But on the other side, you have the challenge of delivering a good ride feeling and also good ride safety to the end user itself. So the challenge there is to manage to deliver a good feeling. On our bike, for example, we carefully selected a full rubber tire that is the softest possible, and we combined that with sport wheels, with a very comfortable seat, and also we worked a lot on riding position in order to make it more as comfortable as possible. In that way, you manage to relieve the full rubber tire effect, and you manage to make a non-professional user barely able to feel the difference while casually riding around the city. Another another crucial component is, of course, the battery. You really need to consider battery range and battery life. The longer is the range of the battery, the less charging operations and the less charging cycles you need to perform. The less charging cycles you perform in time, the longer it becomes the battery life. Also, speaking about the battery, you need to consider the charging time. The shorter the charging time, the less batteries you need as per components during operations. And that can save also a lot of money in operations, because batteries are a dangerous good. So the less dangerous goods you handle in the warehouse, the lower the costs of your warehouse are, even without considering the actual purchase price of the batteries themselves. Then there are many other different factors you need to consider. For example, on our bike, we made sure that we have a 100% over-the-air updatable vehicle. In that way, you save a lot of operations, because instead of recollecting all the bicycles around the city and bring them to the warehouse, plug them in and update them one by one or batch by batch, you can easily just send an update over the air and just freeze the bike for a couple of minutes for it to download the update and install it. And the bike, after the update, the bike is already deployed, so you save a massive amount of operations. Yeah, there are many different factors like these ones that you need to consider.
That's a lot of a lot of factors. You mentioned battery range and battery charging time. I know that's a topic that is quite interesting. Talk about. Could you maybe actually give an example of this? You know how
Yeah, sure.
can affect.
Sure. So, for example, on our bike, by increasing the range from 60 kilometers to 100 kilometers, more or less, which is, by the way, 20% more than the average bike on the market. And by doing that, and also by improving the charging time thanks to an optimal battery management system, we managed to decrease the need of spare batteries per bike from 0.5 batteries per vehicle to 0.3. That means that, for example, if you have a fleet of 1,000 bikes, you need, instead of 500 batteries, spare batteries, additional batteries for your operations, you need just 300. And considering an average price between 250 to 300 euros per battery, that means that you can save up to 50 to 60,000 euros just on the purchase price. On top of that, you need to also add the savings due to lower operations, what we mentioned earlier, lower cost of object handling in warehouse, and so on and so forth.
Wow, that's always fascinating to see how these seemingly small changes or small features can really add up when it comes to the shared mobility industry and the costs especially. So if an operator is ready to introduce e-bikes into their fleet, and they're looking at choosing which bike they're going to include. What kind of things should they be thinking about when they're choosing an e-bike for sharing specifically?
Well, for sure, everything that has been mentioned so far is fundamental. Those are the main key parameters in choosing a bike, but also there are many other factors. As said, it looks simple, but it's a very complex process. Among these factors, you have logistics and production times that are fundamental, because the sharing business, in particular, speaking of bikes, is quite a seasonal business. You can experience very high seasonal peaks during springtime and summertime, and therefore you want to hit the market before those seasonal peaks. So timing is crucial. You need to find a reliable partner that is able to provide the bikes in time to hit the market before the peak. Then you also need to look into the bike design itself. So you want an integrated design. You want nothing exposed on the bike. Nothing must be mounted on the bike. Everything must be part of the bike. So that is in order to prevent vandalism and also stealing of components. So you need to protect the components, both practically protect them, but also visibly and aesthetically protected, in order to make stealing operations more difficult, ideally impossible, but also to prevent the temptation of stealing something. So you need everything must be perfectly streamlined and integrated in the bike. After that, we so far we talk about operations, vehicle protection, and everything, but then at the end of the day, you want users, you want them to come back. So another very, very fundamental aspect is to deliver a fun to ride feeling to the end user. They must enjoy the bike. At the end of the day, the bicycle is a very fun vehicle to move around the city, and you want to preserve that feature on your own bikes. So it must be comfortable and easy to use. And also, last but not least, it must be good looking. On our bike that was 100% designed in Wunder, we paid particular attention to design it for the European market in order not to disrupt too much the bicycle feeling on the end users, and to make it look as much as possible similar to a normal bike, and also very pleasant to look at it. At the end of the day, the aesthetics is the first thing that one senses meet. So also for the operator point of view, it's very important to deliver a livery that has an impact, a positive impact, that is nice and good looking, and also very much recognizable, again, for the user to come and to come again. I also think that it's quite important to deliver a nice looking bike, because at the end of the day, it becomes part of your city. So if you care about your city environment, you want to decorate it. You don't want to ruin it. So yeah, these are the aspects you need to consider, I believe, in choosing a new bike.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think, the branding is an underestimated factor sometimes as well, and the customization and branding for operators in the cities. So we've actually had a question from a viewer here, I see. It's about finding a balance between a bike being adjustable, but also suitable for an average user. Do you have any insights onto finding that balance?
Yes, that can be quite quickly said. It's actually very, very easy to say it, but it's enormously difficult to actually implemented and make it become reality on the vehicle itself. To find the balance is very simple. You want the lowest amount possible of adjustable components on your bike, because everything that is adjustable, it's a moving part. And everything that is a moving part, first of all, it can also be misused, but whatever it sees use, it's something that can fail. So on our bike, for example, we focused a lot on the riding position, because we wanted a fixed handlebar, not adjustable, and fit for all with the most comfortable position possible. For example, we chose the Dutch bar, that we believe it's better for the user, and we kept only the seat as adjustable in height. In that way, the overall vehicle becomes more solid. The user can adjust only the seat. That is also something that is easier to be understood by the user perspective. For example, you don't really want to adjust the handlebar, and in this way, you have all the components on the bike that are fixed, fit for all, fit for most at least, and the adjustable seat, which can make the vehicle as personalized as possible to each user.
Mm-hmm. It's really all about the details sometimes, right? It's incredible, all these factors to consider. I think the average user doesn't always think about all of these things, but of course for a shared mobility company, it can really make all the difference. We are reaching the end of our session now. We did have a couple of further questions that we'll get back to afterwards. But I would like to thank you, Stefano, for sharing some insights. Just to recap, we talked about the popularity of e-bikes in the recent years, in the recent period, and also how this translates into the shared mobility industry. We also talked about how the choice of e-bikes can impact operational efficiency. And then also you shared a lot of examples about what a sharing ready bike looks like and what kind of factors to consider. So thank you so much for all of your insights. We will share the recording with all the viewers after this session in case you want to watch it again. And if you want any more information on our Wunder vehicles or the co-developed e-bike, which Stefano mentioned, with your D, then you can also find out some more information about that on our website. So yeah, thank you, Stefano, for your time and sharing all these insights. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.